Good evening, my beautiful subs, and my family, and my friends, and my adversaries. This case here, getting away from the Kohlberger here for a little while. This case here is something I've been intrigued with for years. I've watched a few specials on it, and someone came out with someone that's fairly new to the crime scene, and it's called Thought Riot Podcast. Don't know if you've seen it or not, um, but it's pretty good. And I've been kind of following them a little bit. And when they did this, it just struck a nerve because I've been watching it for, I've been intrigued by it for years and years and years. And yeah, so show them a little bit of love. Thought Riot Podcast. I'll leave the link in the description below. Um, yeah, I'm going to get into it here. I probably will be stopping some of the uh, some of the video here and there. And here we go.
This is such a chilling one. Okay, so on the evening of December 15th, 2016, Dakota James called his friend Shelly in a panic. Okay. He was cold, disoriented, and scared out of his mind, wandering the streets of downtown Pittsburgh, trying to find someone, anyone who would help him out. Okay. He says, I don't know where I am. I'm so cold. Please help me. I'm lost. And while she's on the phone with him, hearing this, she's trying to ask him, where are you at? You know, what's going on? Trying to get anything out of him. And he wouldn't respond with anything that made sense. He ended up saying, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think he said he was on the east side of Pittsburgh. Now, so she starts driving that direction, okay? And she's thinking, oh no, like he's in trouble, or, is he really drunk, doesn't know what's going on? Did he get mugged? Is he at risk of being hurt? So remembering that a few weeks before, he shared his GPS with her when he was dropping her off at the airport and they needed to meet up or whatever. She pulls up the GPS, finds out that he is not where he thinks he is. Okay. So she starts going just by random guess, based on what she felt was best, to the GPS location, because some of the stuff he was saying didn't make sense. She stayed on the phone with him and he just kept saying, I don't know where I am. I'm so cold. Please help. So finally she pulls up there and sees him walking out of a hotel. Okay. Like coming through the door. There is a dark colored SUV parked on the wrong side of the road just outside the hotel. She pulls up behind the SUV, shouts his name where he was walking towards the SUV, okay, this dark colored SUV. And she said she pulls up like not even 10 feet behind that SUV. So, I mean, they're close. They're real close. Shouts his name. He comes over to the car and gets in and just start having like a hold down, tons of emotions, can't hold it in, crying. She's trying to ask him what's going on, what happened. She literally couldn't get anything out of him. Nothing. They've been friends for a long time. So she decides to leave it at that. Okay. And she asked, do you want to go to the hospital? I really feel like you should go to the hospital. And he says, no, I don't. He just shuts down, basically. You know how guys do that sometimes. Anytime it comes to emotion, like, just shut it down instead of facing it to make the right decision in this situation. So she takes him back home and talks to him the next day. And he didn't wake up till really late. This was right around midnight time. And she asked him some questions about last night. He doesn't remember nothing, doesn't remember what happened, doesn't remember her picking him up, doesn't remember anything. Complete and total blackout. Okay, which is really strange, right?
Yeah.
But they leave it at that. Okay. Now, what happened before that? He went out that night with some work friends drinking to a bar just to hang out with some friends. Okay. And that's where the night led. Now, 3 weeks later, they have no idea what that was or anything. It just kind of goes in the back of their head. 3 weeks later, he goes out again drinking, and similar situation happens. He is picked up and never seen again until
He's picked up.
disappeared.
Okay.
Now I'm saying, because what else could it be? Like, again, coincidences and murder. Okay. 40 days later, and they've had extensive searches. They've been looking for this guy all over the place. Her story came out after he was found missing. Okay. So on March 6, 2017, a guy walking his dog next to the Ohio River, about 10 miles from where he was last seen, found him floating in the river. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. 40 days, you guys. 40 days. Okay. Now, the weird part about this is he looked like he had only been in the river for about 24 hours, 36 hours, something like that.
Oh,
So he has been missing for 40 days.
over a month.
Initially, the medical examiner ruled this an accidental drowning. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And which you'll see is very, very common. However, by all accounts, exterior accounts of the situation, this does not look like an accidental drowning. He had alcohol in his system. After pressure from the parents and other people around them, they ended up doing a test for GHB and found that he had GHB in his system. He had alcohol in his system, okay? And he hadn't been in the water for any length of time. So this is where we're going with this, okay? We covered a story about multiple missing people from the Austin, Texas area. I started doing digging. I've never heard about this before. You remember, we've stated this many times. Like, I was not consuming a lot of online content until we started making this podcast. So now I'm like catching up on all these cases that have been amazing cases for the last decade, but I came upon the smiley face killers. Have you heard of the smiley face killers?
Briefly.
There's quite a bit of media out there. You have crime channels that have done podcasts on this. You have television that have done shows about this, reenactments about this. Okay. Now, to give you guys a rough rundown of the situation, okay? If you remember, and I put out the Austin, Texas story the day before this story, so this will be right in line here. But if you remember, all the potential victims in Austin, Texas were young men on the path for success, athletic and fit, either going to school, on a great upwards trend. okay, for their life. Like they were working towards success. They were popular, they were social, they went out with friends to the bar, and they drank. And that's kind of the MO here. Now, all of those cases in Austin, Texas have been ruled accidental drownings, all of them. And the numbers are insane when you look at the statistics, okay? Well, that story we just heard, that very clearly from all outside accounts looks like a homicide, was also ruled an accidental drowning. Okay. Now, this brings me to the smiley face killers theory and how this theory started. And you guys, it's really important to us to cover the victims in any case, but in this case I'm going to intentionally leave the victims' names out of this, not because of not because we don't want them to be remembered, but there is a possibility here that there's over 300 victims. We could not possibly get to all of them. Okay, so if I can't talk about all of them, then I think it's more fair to talk about none of them by name. Okay. So we can talk about some of their situations, but I just don't think it's fair to only pick out a few of the cases and label them by name while all of these people could potentially be victims of these guys, you know, the whole 300 people. So
Can you even find a list of all 300?
honestly, I didn't look for it because it's not possible on here. It would have took up a whole clip of just names and situations, you know?
It would probably take like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
just go over the victims, if not more, honestly.
Yep. So how did this all start? Okay, we're gonna have to take a look way back. So the first case that is on paper is in 1997. Okay, very similar situation to this, except there wasn't two tries, there was only one. They got the kid on the first time, and it was in the New York area, and he was missing for, I think it was like 2 weeks, and dropped in the river. And the detective at the time was Anthony Duarte. And what's interesting is Anthony Duarte, it was the most decorated officer of all times out of that police station. Meaning you see that and you think, okay, trustworthy, knows what he's doing, right? As an investigator. Amazing success rate.
Mhm.
So the most decorated in New York State's history, this man retired to take on this case. You might have seen him on this case, on the smiley face killer case. You might have seen these specials, but there's some things in this video that I didn't know, and I find it really, really, really strange and a little bit freaky, to tell you the truth. And actually, one of the cases is in Minnesota, if not two. I think there's actually two, one in Minneapolis and one in St. Cloud, I think it was, or something. Anyway, yeah, uh, it's one of the craziest cases you'll ever see. I'm going to let it go on here.
Mhm.
And so he was put on this case, and this was a case that he could never let go, ever let go. So the medical examiner listed it as an accidental drowning. The parents had tons of information why that's not possible. He was a swim captain. All these reasons why it's not possible. Okay. And the parents brought it up to the detective and said, look, you know, we're just hurting. We don't want people to look at our kid and think that, you know, he left this world just a drunk fool, and he took that to heart. This investigator took it to heart to the point where he's now been investigating this like 3 decades. Okay.
He was a swim captain.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So this was when they didn't have the name Smiley Face Killers. Okay. And this is a terrifying story, you guys. So anyways, we'll speed things up from here and just give you some examples. Ultimately, what ended up happening here is this officer ended up becoming a retired police officer, never letting this go. He ended up being his own investigation department and focusing mainly on this. He has tons of information into this.
So he's a PI now,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And he is running that with Frank Gannon and Anthony Duarte, and they manage this company, and they focus a lot on the Smiley Face Killers. Okay. Now there is thought to be over 300 victims here. Okay. During their investigation, they have come across some information and believe that this can be this is a multi-cell organization across the U.S. that communicates through the dark web. Okay, to add some even more scary facts to this. You
See,
know
that's
what
what
I
I
mean?
was starting to think before you even said that. Like, I started thinking about that because of the update we just did about the guy in New York found, and we're
Mhm.
talking about Austin, and you were just talking about New York, and then I mentioned something in Chicago.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, well, how can there be that many people doing this exact thing? They have to be talking, obviously.
Yep.
Dark web.
So, give you a rundown of some of the victim situations, and then we'll go into why or how this can happen, right?
Mhm.
So, January 25th, 2017, 23-year-old male, and all of these guys are fit, popular, doing well, on the path for success. Most of them are people of privilege. They come from money, so went to some of the best schools, and weird how that works out, but for most of them it's like that. So January 25th, 2017, a 23-year-old in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania goes missing. Okay, the search ensues, and again, similar to before, 40 days later his body is found in the river. Okay, but here is the really weird part is he's found 10 miles from the bar area where he goes missing. Okay, downriver. And this was labeled an accidental death, okay, by drowning. Now, what's in between where he went missing to where he was found is a dam and really rugged, messed up water, like with rocks and sticks and islands and places that separate the water and everything. But all that water goes through an internal dam, through a concrete dam, meaning this body would have gone through that dam and washed out down here if it was an accidental drowning, because the leading theory is that these guys are wasted. Okay, they're partying hard, they go to use the bathroom in the river, they fall in, and because they're so drunk, they don't ever come out. Okay, well, his body doesn't look like it went through a dam. It is like pristine. There are only a few marks on his body, bloating. There is no skin slippage. Nothing that you would expect to see from a being in the water for 4 days, meaning more than likely he was not in the water for 40 days. So again, another situation as the first one. Where is that time? How was he missing for a month? Okay.
Yeah, it couldn't have just
Missing.
been drunk and fell in.
And what's weird is he had alcohol in his system when he was found, meaning someone put alcohol back in his system, because the alcohol from the night of being missing would have been out of system.
Right.
Weird,
And he
right?
had GHB in his system, right?
Yes, he did. They didn't connect that yet. So GHB was new when these crimes started. They didn't even test for it. And for you guys out there, GHB is not on your normal panel drug test. It is not on a 6 panel, an 8 panel, a 12 panel, or a 16 panel. GHB has to be tested very specific.
Did you catch that? GHB needs a whole separate test. So in other words, when they do testing like on autopsies and stuff, and they do like how many other panels, whatever, it's not going to show up. It's a specific test to discover GHB in your body. Now, we heard like in the Moscow case that, you know, oh, their bodies were clean. And, you know, that's what's going around. But did they search for GHB? Just as, I'm not saying that they had it in them or anything like that. I'm just, you know, observing what these people are saying about the GHB. And, you know, maybe there's a relation, maybe there isn't. But I find it quite odd about these people being in the water for so long, and there's nothing that actually shows that. And then they find like alcohol in their system after they've been in the water for 40 days. And it doesn't look like their body's been in the water 40 days. Pretty pristine. It's just a very crazy case. And 300 men, and get this, I don't know if they said this yet or not, but the 300, every single one of them had GHB in their blood, had GHB in their body. Every single one of them. Every single one of them are men. I wonder about a case that's just close by here where a kid ended up missing. I think he was 18 or something like that, and good shape. They haven't found him yet. But I actually called in a tip saying, and this had been years ago, and I had watched this, watched a video on this, and it was on, you know, mainstream. And I called it in and said, man, look for some smiley faces. You know, I almost felt like going out and looking for smiley faces after this, because it's kid, and that kid is still missing. So I don't know. I'm just, you know, spitballing here. But anyway, back to the video.
Specifically, okay? Once these detectives got on the case of GHB, made the connection here, they've tested 45 people, 45 guys, liver tests, which is an undeniable test, meaning if there was GHB in their system at all, even if it had gone out from being in the water or expelled from their blood or whatever, because the half-life is so short, you would see it in there. 100% test positive rate. 100% of them. Weird.
Yes, weird.
That throws out my theory that I thought I came up with the other day, and I'll share that with you guys. But okay, so and again, the police labeled that one an accidental drowning. January 19th, 2018, 24-year-old man, Woodland, Pennsylvania, enters a bar. Footage of him entering the bar, okay? Disappears. No footage of him leaving. None.
Oh.
They can't figure out how. They can't figure out where. They can't figure out anything, okay? And he's found in a creek face down 10 days later. Found in water.
And also
Ruled accidental drowning. Correct. Yep. September 29th, 2006, 21-year-old in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Him and a friend got separated friend was picked up by a police officer and escorted to the emergency room because he had he got hit in his head, and he never saw his friend he got separated from again alive. Okay, so he was next found in the Mississippi River 20 days later, had visible markings on his hands, arms, and head as it appeared to be a struggle, which aligned with his friend who was in the ER.
Oh, because
He had damages on his finger. He had markings on his neck.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
And it matches with his friend.
Because his friend got hit by something.
Okay, so we don't know what happened to them?
We don't know what happened to them.
No, like him and his friend, what were they doing before
They
the
don't
ER?
know. Both of them blacked out.
And then the other one goes missing.
The other one goes missing and turns up in water. Yep.
Huh.
June 12th, 2005, 22-year-old was at a bonfire hanging out with friends, just disappeared, just out of nowhere. Body found 3 weeks later. Again, undetermined drowning, minimal decomp, okay, after 20 days, and ruled accidental drowning or undetermined drowning. October 8th, 2009, Navy veteran in Boston, Massachusetts. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the Navy makes you swim and swim a lot when you're going through basic. This guy knew how to swim, and he knew how to swim really good, just like that other guy was a swim captain. So he started feeling sick halfway through the game and told his friends who he was there with. He was there with 2 other friends that, hey, I'm not feeling good. I got to go. And he called his fiance to pick him up. When she arrived, he wasn't there. She called him, okay, and said, "Hey, where are you at?" She heard her fiance almost like the phone was away from him, and saying, "Hey, where are we at?" And then someone else gave an address. Okay, heard another voice say an address. Phone hangs up. And then it's like the phone's out of batteries. It won't connect again when she tries to call back. She doesn't see him again until a week later. He was found in the river, and blunt force trauma to his head. Again, GHB. Yeah. And labeled an accidental drowning. Okay. January 1st, 2000. Chicago, drinking with friends. This guy barely drank because he cared about his schooling so much that he barely ever drank. He told his friends he was out with, "Hey, I'm not feeling good." So they all agree to go back to the hotel with him. So they all walk, up to the hotel. He starts getting sick outside, and they're just like joking, messing around with him, whatever, start walking up ahead, and he goes missing. Found 77 days later in water. Accidental drowning.
What was he decomposed?
Nope. Decomp doesn't match.
So where
Scary.
are they being kept for that long?
Scary, right? Isn't this a really eerie story? Now, the part I left out.
Are they all guys?
They are all guys. They are all in their early 20s. I gave the age for all of them. We have 20, we have 27, 22, 21.
I mean, like the 300.
24. Yes.
They're all men.
Yes.
And then you have what's going on in Austin.
Yes,
were any of
you
them? Do you have any idea if any of them were tested positive for GHB?
We don't know because they're ruled accidental,
and they won't look into it.
It has to be specifically requested by the parents because it costs so much to do a GHB test. It's just not a common thing to look for unless they have reason that it. Now, here's the thing that I left out. This is why this gets the name Smiley Killers. The smiley face killers is every one of these, and these are just regular examples like any of the potential 300, definitely all of the 45. Okay. they all have a smiley face at the place of where they think they were dropped, the bodies. The best place for the bodies to be dropped, okay? And I will be putting some up, so you guys will be seeing it. But these guys are smart, okay? So let's just go down the rabbit hole.
Wait, what kind of smiley face? I can't see it right now.
They're just smiley faces, and they're all different. They do not match. They do not match.
So
None of them
probably
match.
all different people drawing them.
It could be all different people. It could also be one smart person using different smiley faces. And you know what's super strange? One of these victims' headstones had a smiley face sticker put on it. And that's evidence that like is not disputable. You know, they have record of that.
Yeah, was that when they had the smiley face killer name? So it was before that name was around?
Yep, it was before the name was around, because I thought of that same thing too, because you got to be careful and be worried about like copycat killers and things like that, okay? So these guys have been testing these bodies, and they try to get the word out, and they say that's why there's been shows, that's why there's been media, that's why there's been all this stuff, because we've been out there getting, you know, in the mud, getting dirty, trying to let people know about this stuff, and they just want people to be aware, essentially, and work with people to try and take these guys down. And so they've had a lot of families that have had one of these victims happen, these drownings happen, and call them to the scene. And what's interesting is these guys are able to tell you where it's going to be at, like where the smiley face is going to be at. And you know,
the cops are?
Yep. And what is wild here is how reluctant police are to investigate these as a killer, okay? And these two police officers go in to say that like there's two dirty words when it comes to police, when it comes to any of the police departments. One of them's task force and the other one's serial killer, okay?
Oh yeah.
If they can not announce that, they will do everything in their power not to, because if they do that, they end up having a situation like you know, Son of Sam, that insane task force with hundreds of people, tons of attention, tons of judgment, like what you were talking about earlier. Or you'll have the Zodiac, or like any of these really infamous big task force serial killers. And the police force don't want this, okay?
They want a task force trying to solve a crime?
Yeah. According
Why?
to these police officers. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't dig into that specific aspect, but that's what these guys are saying. And remember, this comes from the most successful cop in New York history, okay? So this guy knows what he's talking about. And they're just very reluctant to label it a serial killer, because I think you have feds come in your backyard, the amount of money that it's going to cost, the amount of judgment, and like, don't get me wrong.
Feds are a good thing for resources.
Yeah, but police don't like feds.
I know.
So
I get it.
Yeah, but you're acting like it doesn't make sense, but it makes perfect sense why they don't want them there.
Why?
All the reasons I just listed. You're acting like those aren't like valid reasons. Well, socially they might not be valid reasons, but we see them every day in police forces. So it totally makes sense. It's just really unfortunate in these situations, because the more I look at this, the more I feel like, hey, these guys are onto something. They found something, they picked up something, and it's really strange. Now I don't have evidence of this, but in the bits that I have read, I have a few hours of investigating this so far. These guys claim that they got so far that they figured out the the website. So for those of you that don't know, on the dark web, you have to have the link, the specific link, and it's
Right.
a ton of numbers and letters and a mixture of things to get to this one specific site. Well, they were able to figure out what that site is, okay? And they got on there and they were talking about and posting pictures of these situations and scenes, and then they were flagged and kicked off like pretty quick, telling them, hey, turn on your webcam or we're going to kick you off. Turn on your webcam or we're going to kick you off. And that's like the number one rule you don't ever do on the dark web. Never, ever, ever turn on your webcam. That's a direct link to the data, where you're at, your location, everything. So, but this, to me, this is a scary story because somebody out there, maybe it was one person that started this, maybe it was 5 people that started this, okay? They have their system down. They know exactly what to do to keep police off their back. They know that they're intentionally adding variables like water, alcohol, to throw police off, okay? And one thing that I want to highlight too is I think that they do it very smart. And I think the reason why they're in different cities here is because they can't let the drowning number, the statistic, get too far out of the range of normal. Strange, right? Is that not spooky? To me, this is spooky and this is strange, and it's scary thinking the intelligence behind this, okay? One of my theories that I had before I found out about the GHB and the 45 different people, you guys, is that there's alcohol for consumption, and then there's alcohol that's poisonous. And when there was prohibition for a while in certain countries, they used to serve like it's either ethyl alcohol or ether alcohol, but like the alcohol, the consuming alcohol is 1 part water and 1 part alcohol. The ether alcohol is 1 part alcohol and 1 part alcohol. So it is a raw form of alcohol that can create a poisoning effect really fast, that can cause blackouts, that can cause sickness, which multiple of these guys have thrown up. So for a second there, I was like, man, that could be it. Like, that's how they're getting away with it without getting caught, is they're popping for having alcohol in their system, not realizing that it's ether alcohol or ethyl alcohol. You know what I mean? Which was super interesting, but
but the GHB throws a wrench in that.
The GHB throws a wrench in it. Now, you have places like Chicago that are just on the outer borders of the statistical drowning numbers, okay? So like in 2018, they had 54, 2019, 56, 2020, 44, 2021, 46, and 2022 is 41. And that puts them right at the edge at 4% per 100,000, which is literally what Austin's at right now, 4%.
Yep.
So it's right on that edge, you guys. What do you think? Do you think this is enough evidence to say that there is a serial killer group out there? It's impossible to be one person because they have confirmed that killings have happened on the same nights in 2 different places that were impossible to be there during those times. Not to mention, if we believe their theory of the dark web, then you know what I mean. Scary stuff. Scary stuff. But I'm curious what you guys think. I want to know how you feel about it.
It's incredibly scary, and it's so many coincidences that it just feels like it can't be a coincidence. It feels impossible. Like, at this point, it feels impossible for it to be a coincidence.
I agree. And you know, the FBI looked into the smiley face killings and they said they debunked it in a certain way. I would be very curious to understand why, because what's interesting
This
is
is still happening now.
This
right
is
now,
still happening
today.
right now, today.
It's happening.
Yep. Makes me think
Regularly.
somebody moved to Austin, okay? Because we went from 1 drowning a year, 2 drowning a year, 1 drowning a year, 1 drowning a year, 2 drowning a year, 8 8 drownings in a year.
Kicked
Okay.
it off with 8.
8. And
Yeah.
then 5, and then 6, and then like it never
Yeah.
went back down, just always up at that, right up at the tippy top outer level before it's statistically flagged, you know, where they're going to say, oh no, we got a problem now. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's keeping it right there, you guys.
It's keeping it low enough that that they're not going to be like, oh yeah, that's a huge increase. Like, we got a problem.
These guys are scary intelligent if this is a group like they say they are, right? Now, coincidences, yes. Does the evidence point to that? I think that it's strong enough it does. I really do. I also understand why they would question it, but I at least feel like this deserves a deeper look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to know how the FBI claims to have debunked it, because I feel like it would take so much time to actually debunk this.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to just swoop in and debunk it in a couple months.
I agree. And we're talking like 300 people here plus, you guys.
Plus, I mean, there's probably way more than that, because some of them probably aren't on the radar. Has Austin even been added to that?
No,
we're at 20 something.
I don't think so. I'm just at the beginning stages of this research. When I started looking into Austin because people were calling it out online, that's how I found this theory, you know, and then started digging in, wanted to tell you guys about it. If you guys are interested in this, let me know. I can do a follow-up video and go a little bit deeper. We can dig a little bit deeper into this and see what we come up with. But as always, I want to know what you guys think about it. I want to know how you feel.
So there you have it. 300 men, all men. They all have GHB in their system. It's all the way across the United States. All the way from New York to California, up north to Washington, Idaho. It's everywhere. Started almost 30 years ago. 300 men. All listed as, every single one of them is listed as accidental drowning. Very strange. Very, very, very strange. I'd like to know your thoughts. Again, I'll leave the link down there. And is there a smiley face killer in your area? Have a good day, people.